Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen and I'm going to show you how I made a Brazilian coconut cake and decorated it. Alright, I'm going to just jump right into this Brazilian coconut cake here. I've never made a cake like this before, so it was kind of fun to try. And it really wasn't bad and it came out pretty good, I gotta say. So I start with 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's softened. Add 4 egg yolks, just the yolks, but save the whites, okay? Add a cup of milk to it, just regular old milk. It's supposed to be room temperature. And then I'm going to add a cup of sugar. And I had to use my half measuring cup because my other one was dirty and wet from the milk. So there you go. Now I'm going to throw in 2 tablespoons of shredded coconut. And then I am just going to add my last little thing, which is going to be a pinch of salt. So I didn't know how much a pinch should be, so I just gave a shake-a-shake-a. It's a shake-a-shake-a of salt. Turn on your mixer, mix it on up. I know it looks like I'm going pretty fast, but I have my video in fast forward. So I want to say it was like one of the first or second setting. It wasn't too fast. For the dry ingredients, you take 2 cups of flour, sift it, and then put it aside. We're going to come back to it in a second. There we go. See how nice and sifted it is, nice and soft. As I am still mixing my other wet stuff there, I am just adding 1 scoop at a time of my flour so it has a chance to mix in nicely without overwhelming it. And you end up with that kind of pasty, gooey, thick stuff there. I scraped it with a spatula. It almost dropped my camera into the mixer there. Finish mixing it on up. And then I'm going to scrape it out and put it aside. I'm going to put it into my bowl that I had the flour in before. And this is only because I only have the 1 mixer and I need it for the next step. So, yes, all right, so far so good. All right, I cleaned my mixer. I wiped it all down with some lemon juice just to make sure there was no fat left from the milk or the butter. And I put my egg whites in. Those 4 egg whites that we held on to from before, we're throwing them in now. I got my whisk in there. I got a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar that I added to it too, because I just do that when I make egg whites. I added a tablespoon, which is a lot, of baking powder to the batter there. I added a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and as soon as those egg whites start stiffening up, which they are right there, I forgot to record it, my battery kind of died, but I mixed the batter into the egg whites, put it in a greased pan, baked it 360 for 40 minutes. All right. While it was baking and cooling and all that other good stuff, I made the sauce. It's a cup of shredded coconut with 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, which is 14 ounces, and then 12 ounces of coconut milk. So it's just the 3 things, and mix them on up until they're nice and mixed together and the condensed milk kind of, dissolves into the other one. And then you put it aside. Everything just sits aside for now. All right, my cake came out of the oven, and look how lovely and golden it is. And I know normally you bake them round, but this cake had to be decorated, and she wanted it a certain way, so I made it into a rectangle. I'm using my cake level cutter thing to take off the top, that humped up piece that I later ate, and it was delicious. And I figured in the process of doing that, I wouldn't have to poke too many holes in it, because the next step of this is you're supposed to poke a bunch of holes in your cake using a fork or something, like really pepper that sucker up. And then you pour your sauce on top and it soaks through the holes and gets all into it because the cake is really dense. It's like really thick and really dense and not really all that sweet. But once you add the sauce to it, it's really good. Really good. That's what I was talking about. Those scraps were gone. They were just gone. So since I took the top piece off, that was no problem soaking in there. But around the edge where it was still a little golden and I didn't cut, that's where I poked the holes in with my fork. And I drizzled that stuff all over it. And I probably could have gone more if I really tried, but whatever. You learn, right? Okay, I made a second one, did the same thing to it. And when I stacked them together, I put a big layer of shredded coconut in the middle as basically my filling. And then you stick it in the fridge. This thing needs to sit in the fridge for a while because it's so darn runny. I ended up leaving it in there like overnight, and then the next day I iced it. I made a white chocolate icing, which was fabulous. Okay, it was really good. And this is where I decorated it. I got fondant and I rolled it out nice and thin, and I started putting stripes on it. And you're like, why are there stripes on it? As if you didn't look at the picture already, but you probably did. Okay, so the cake was for a man who came from Brazil 19 years ago, and his wife likes to celebrate it every year by getting him a traditional, Brazilian coconut cake. And she wanted it decorated half with the American flag and half with the Brazilian flag with a little message and personalized. So it was actually a lot of fun to make. So the bottom half, as you see, is going to become my American flag. I started off with a white stripe on the bottom, and I went to red, white, and red. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. And I followed that line that I made diagonal across the whole length of the cake there. You can see the mark I made that I'm lining everything up to. I have that little wedge cut out there where the red and white stripes are because that's where the field of blue is going to go. And yeah, just line it all up, and it just worked out perfectly with the size lines I made. Totally because I planned it that way and not because I just got really lucky. I decided to cover that bottom piece that was sticking out with just a big old piece of red fondant. And yeah, just that's all I did. I probably could have put more stripes in it, but I didn't. I just made one big red piece. Clean up the cake plate, stick it back in the fridge. It went in and out of the fridge like crazy because it was very moist. Had to stay cold. All right, the other side is going to be the Brazilian flag. If you're not familiar with it, it's a green flag with kind of like a yellow diamond with a blue, almost with a blue field on it with some stars, a message in Latin on it. So that's what I was doing there. There's my green field right there. I just rolled out the green fondant. This is all fondant, by the way, because it's easy to cover the cake. That's what it's for. It's soft, it's flexible, it's forgiving, it's nice. I don't decorate with it, but I will cover a cake with it. Okay, so back to the American flag because I jump around a little bit. Here is a piece of paper. You saw me hold it up to the cake, and that just gave me the measurement for that little triangle I needed to fill in the blue. So I cut it out, made my little template. I have a star cutter. I was like, perfect. Stick it on in there. There's my bottom star in the bottom corner of the flag. And there's some white fondant, same star cutter, stick it in. Look at that. It's like magic. It fits together. So I very carefully laid it back into that little section I cut out. And I realized it kind of looked weird, like it needed a little bit more in the corner. So I took my star, I made a little shape there, cut it out with my X-Acto knife in the blue, accidentally made an imprint on the green, you can kind of see it there. Took some of that white, made my little plug, made it too big because you can always take away, you can't always add. Trimmed off what I didn't need, and then there you go. It just looks a little bit better, I think, that way. And later on, I think I cover most of it, and it's kind of wasted, but that's all right. All right, there's the center part of the Brazilian flag I was telling you about. It has a gold kind of diamond with the blue field with the stars. I positioned it however I thought would look best, and I used my stick there and just made a line and started cutting. I made a template out of this is what I did. So once I got it all cut out, I rolled out some yellow fondant and trimmed it to the shape. I found a circle that pretty much fit that blue field there in the center. Held it up, moved the paper, press it down. There you go. Look at that. Like magic. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the blue. I rolled out some blue fondant using that same circle cutter, cut out my circle, put the two together, make sure my lines are all nice and tidy once again. And then I'm going to trim off that extra that's sticking out. And now for my next step, I cut out the white banner on that blue field with the lettering, placed a piece of white fondant in that I cut down to size in there, and yeah, now I'm going to add it to the cake. So I took my template once again, put it over the green, trimmed it out just so I could remove it so it'll sink down nice and flat. Gotta pick it out nice and careful. There's that lovely white chocolate icing. It was very tasty, by the way. Stick that piece of gold in there, match up the edges, try to tuck it in nice and neat, and then, yeah, make it nice and smooth, and you're ready to move on to the next step. I'm going to write the words on the white banner with my edible food coloring marker, just because that was the easiest way to do it. And then once you get that all taken care of, it's time to add some stars to your field. I just used little white dots of different sizes because I didn't have any stars that were that small. And now for the final touches of the cake, to make it more personalized, she had asked for a house with the state of Pennsylvania, like the outline of them, on one side for the American side, and then a couple of hearts on the Brazilian side, because even though his heart is in Brazil, his home is here in Pennsylvania. Isn't that sweet? I thought that was very cute. And for one final last little touch, I took a long piece of white fondant, made a little triangle cutout at each end to make it look kind of like a ribbon, wiggled it across my seam to hide it, wrote the message of happy 19 years, put a couple little stars because it looked boring to me. And there you go. You got your Brazilian coconut cake with white chocolate frosting, decorated to celebrate the union of two countries in one man's life. It was a very monumental cake. So please check out my other videos. Please like and subscribe. It helps me out. As always, guys, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.